أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Welcome to each and every one of you, and welcome to everybody watching online as well. We've got a very interesting discussion taking place today, and it's quite relevant and pertinent given that we're in the middle of a genocide. We're facing issues with the media. We want to understand what it is that the media does, and we want to understand what role we can play in that entire process. And we've got three excellent guests with us. Aisha Vawda, to my immediate right, is an attorney in the High Court of South Africa. She's also a legal reporter at The Hague, and she's a senior producer with a passion for sharing the untold story. You would have seen Aisha's work on the Debrief Network on social media channels. Sitting right next to Aisha is Nathi Ngubane, our brother, who is an illustrator and a writer, quite well known for the famous and in some circles infamous coloring book, because coloring books are dangerous, From the River to the Sea. It was actually banned in Jerusalem, in Al-Quds, one of the bookstores that stock the coloring book that was taken away by the Israeli authorities for hate speech, was it, Nati? Yeah, yes. That was the charge, alleged charge. So Nati's latest coloring book is out as well, and it's available here at the event, Malcolm X in Gaza. And making up our panel is Imogen Capel. Imogen is a journalist and a social media producer. You would see a lot of her excellent productions in social media on Scene TV and Scene Palestine. Quite punchy, quite factual, attention-grabbing social media content. Imogen is very passionate about amplifying the voices from Palestine, and she was involved in the production of two documentaries, one of which you might have seen, Ahmed Alive, Ahmed Ghunaim, who is in South Africa now, who left Gaza during the genocide. So Imogen was assisting on the production of that excellent documentary. Please give them a warm round of applause. So the topic we're looking at today is the new media Intifada, Palestine, propaganda, and the power of your platform. I think where I'll start with is, because there's a lot of creativity involved here, I want to get a feel of where your guys' inspiration lies. If I can just maybe start with you, Imogen, in terms of where does your content come from? It's not just standard content. You put a lot into it. What's the source of that inspiration?
It's quite a difficult question starting off with, but I think, as cliche as it may sound, it comes from working with those creators in Gaza that I work with, those people on the ground, those youth on the ground, and their resilience and their inspiration and their creativity and determination to get the word, get the truth out there is inspiring for us as producers and journalists to want to help get those voices out there, because I think a common misconception is that Palestinians in Gaza, they don't have voices, and that's not true. They don't need us to be a voice for them. They need us to help them amplify their voices, and that's kind of where a lot of my inspiration comes from.
Awesome. Nati, you've put together some amazing work. You're holding two of the coloring books there, and it's inspired loads of kids. So from an artistic point of view, where would you say your source of inspiration comes generally and specifically related to Palestine?
Well, growing up in South Africa, first of all, we come from an oppressive system called apartheid, and we are very, very familiar with what is happening in Gaza and what's been happening to Palestinians for a very long time. And I've always wanted to do work on Palestine because I'm also a cartoonist, a political cartoonist, and I also do cartoons on social justice, and I cover a lot of communities that are often ignored, and one of those communities are Palestinians. We've seen what's been happening. We've seen the world leaders ignore the people in Gaza, and I guess for my work on Palestine, the inspiration really came from our lawyers who approached the ICJ, and this was the moment for myself and my team, Social Bandit Media, to capture this moment, because going back, My first work on Palestine was about 11 years ago when I was working for the Daily Vox. I did a cartoon. So that was the first material really on Palestine, but I've always wanted to do more over the years. So, my inspiration is just, it's driven from the fact that I know where I come from, and the resistance of Palestinians is very, very inspiring. And yeah.
Aisha?
For me, it's a little bit different. As attorneys, everything you do is on print. It's not very visual. And then from reporting at the ICJ, I realized how informative and important it is to visually represent for the people in Gaza, especially. As the ICJ case started, people from Palestine, for the first time, they felt part of an international community. They felt that there were people there who were really standing for them, people who were aware of what's happening. And since then, it's just steamrolled. Every time you want to do something and you do it visually or you do it on social media, they come back to you with such appreciation for being part of their cause, for amplifying them. So the inspiration comes from there. It's almost like a point of desperation where the only way to reach them or to show them that you're part of their solidarity is through social media. That's the most important tool that we have right now.
So we know there's mainstream media, we know there's a growing alternative media, we know there's a lot of social media accounts as well. Everybody's putting out news, but just to take it back a little, Aisha, and I'll put this to you. Media are corporations. How do they decide what the public sees and how to change or how to shape public perception?
I think it's been a big wake-up call for all of us. When we realize now that the media is actually not what we thought they were. And that's why we've had to turn to alternate sources of media. I mean, the BBC, CNN, they've come under fire in official reports where we've seen that they're biased and they're actually quite controlled. And the first time that I realized this was at the ICJ. South Africa brought the case to the ICJ, and out of a point of desperation, I started reporting because we didn't have South African media there. Our main media was not covering a case that we were reporting on. So I realized from that we actually really controlled in ways that we don't even realize, and that's where social media and alternate sources came from.
Nati, anything to add on media corporations and what they decide gets hidden from the public and in terms of what they need to push out, in your experience?
So I worked for a newspaper as well, and we would have meetings on the boards, and I would listen to what kind of stories are being presented for that day, and it's just shocking that a media has an agenda to push. They instead of doing what they are supposed to be doing, which is the media is supposed to be responsible for the truth and actually covering what is actually happening in our very eyes, not to twist, not to bend over for and accommodate other agendas. So it's quite shocking with what I've seen in media, but at the same time it's not surprising seeing how prominent Zionists are in the very space where we receive our news.
Imogen, this would lead us to probably editorial policy. So who decides on editorial policy? Is it really the editor, or are there people behind the scenes pulling the strings? How does that get decided on major media platforms?
I think on major media platforms, we know that they are, the BBC, for example, is government funded. They exist only because of the funding that they receive. So I definitely don't think that it is the editor that really does decide that. But in saying that, we speak about alternative media sources, and what I have started to realize is the BBC, the CNN, the Guardian, all of those places, they are becoming the alternative media sources. They are becoming the less trusted, the more, people don't trust them anymore. I feel that they are at least starting to die. And more and more and more and more people are continuously turning to what we would call alternative media platforms. I think that what gives me a lot of hope is that CNN, BBC, all of those places are becoming the alternative, less trusted media sources.
So just in line with what you're saying, a thought came to mind. You probably heard about this. In the US, which is obviously the strongest supporter base for Israel, with young Jewish Americans, 2/3 of young Jewish Americans support the Palestinian resistance, which is something nobody would have dreamed of. Would you say this is due down to simply alternative media, or them just being disillusioned with so-called mainstream media?
I think that it's down to, in part, alternative media, but I also think that what should fall under that is the creators, the journalists, the storytellers on the ground. I think more than anything, they are the reliable sources of information, and this is the most, if not only, documented genocide in the history. And when you're seeing that on your social media platforms, it's impossible for most people who have any humanity. It's impossible to ignore. And once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. And I believe that is a huge, huge part of what's driven this increase in young Jewish people supporting Palestine and the Palestinian resistance.
Nati, Imogen's touched on the content creators that are pushing out some excellent content. What makes a story trustworthy? Because you could have a snazzy looking content item. It could look really nice. It could look really punchy. How does somebody tell the difference between fact and something that looks really nice?
Well, just for an example of the work that I do, we do a lot of research, and we discuss with Palestinian academics and activists and people who who report on these sources, on the facts. And today's society, it's very, very easy for us, or for people rather, to believe whatever they see, because if something has gone viral, many people will suggest that, it might be true then, because a lot of people are paying attention to it. But that is not it. I mean, the Israeli propaganda that I've seen, and how many people have actually seen these as fact, that this land was promised to Israelis 3,000 years ago. It's actually insane how fake news or how false narratives can actually brainwash the people that are consuming that media. And I think it's just very important to really look beyond those viral posts and actually do research and actually find out for yourself as a citizen, as an individual, how true is the content that you are consuming? How true is it?
So Aisha, I'm gonna pass that over to you, because that was the next question. As consumers of content, as the public, how do we become more responsible in looking beyond the virality of a post, beyond who the content creator is? How do we verify facts when mainstream media is distorting the truth and not reporting it fairly?
I think that we're very lucky in the sense that we can now get verified information off of the ground in places like Gaza, and the journalists are risking their lives so that we get that verified information. So firstly, most importantly, you can always find the verified information on Al Jazeera, and they report on the hour on what's happening in a genocide. And then you can actually look at the journalists and the citizen journalists who risk their lives. For example, this week we had the horrible incident of Anna Sharif. It's been a really difficult week for the journalists in Gaza, but they're actually giving their entire lives so that we can see the truth. So if you see something and you think that it's unverified, I would recommend you first go to Al Jazeera, who will report on it as quickly as possible. And then you go to these people, you go to the accounts of Hind Khudri, and you go to the account of Bisan, because they're risking their lives to make sure that you get that accurate information. It's there for you. You just need to know where to go.
So that's important. You need to know where to go, because traversing social media could be a minefield. You don't know where to go, but it's important that you follow the right accounts. And I think that's where responsibility would come in on behalf of the consumers. Imogen, you spoke about the not retelling the story of the Palestinians and being inspired by it, how do we ensure that we don't hijack the story of Palestinians and we amplify their voices? Where would you see the line, the difference in terms of magnifying what's being said there?
I think it is really as simple as show, don't tell. And we as journalists, what we're here for is to put the story together and to make sure that it reaches the right people. But it's just about not filtering their words, the words of the people on the ground in Gaza, not scripting them, not guiding. They are telling you the truth. They are telling you their experiences, and that shouldn't be something that is changed or manipulated or editorialized in any way. I think that the editorial integrity of that content comes from not altering it. It's very much, for me, show, don't tell. So don't overtake that voice, because you don't need to. It's powerful enough as it is.
So while you're there on that thought, purposeful content. What would purposeful content look like where there's constant distractions? I mean, the way the algorithms work, as soon as you're on your device or on that app, you're seeing post after post after post, which the algorithm's deciding, what to show you. How do you filter out purposeful content? And while you're there as well, can a viral post change someone's thinking or change somebody's feeling or their heart?
Yes, but I'm going to touch on that one first, because that's something I truly believe, and this is something that Intifada Solomon said to me once from Gifted Together's. Palestine is not a battle that's going to be won with guns and tanks and bombs. It will be won through storytelling. It's a narrative battle. I think a viral post or a piece of content can change everything. I think in the past a lot of people could have said, we didn't know it because the media wasn't showing us. No one can say that anymore. We see it. Everyone sees it. We know what's happening. And for the few that aren't seeing it, especially, our media looks very different. Our Instagram feed looks very different to what someone in Israel's feed looks like. They are also, the content that they're seeing is filtered. And if a piece of content goes viral and that somehow seeps through those algorithms and that shadow ban and everything, that when someone sees it, I do think that it can change minds and hearts. I think that I really do believe that storytelling is the most powerful weapon to change the world and for the freedom of Palestine.
Nati, what does purposeful content look like to you?
So purposeful content for me, first of all, looks like, as I've mentioned, content that has Palestinian voices in it, and starting from there. And when my team and I were coming up with this coloring book, the first thing we wanted to really teach is to help kids navigate the world, the current world around them, the current climate. It could get quite overwhelming, for the young minds to really comprehend. And so that purpose for us was to rather just start with the story of Palestine and taking it from there, and then listening to Palestinian voices and trying to just surround ourselves with the struggle and really familiarize ourselves with the struggle of Palestinians. And then in return to that, the content would then come to be, and just to really leave that meaningful content for young ones, because we know that in many of the social media that we consume, it's mostly driven to really push the Israeli agenda, and apparently that is the most popular one. When I was in Cape Town last year, I've had a Zionist tell me that why don't, or really accuse me for not showing both sides of the story. But their so-called side of the story is already out there. What about the voices of the Palestinians? What about Palestinian content that they are so quick to shut down as soon as you see material that aims to rehumanize a people that's been dehumanized for a long time? The Zionists are so quick to shut that down. So, we need this purposeful content that is driven by research and is driven by the Palestinian voices and the kids from Palestine.
So quite simply, another answer to the Zionists who asked you that question would be that you can't two sides of genocide. There's one side.
Exactly.
There's the one who's carrying out the genocide, and there's the recipients of the genocide.
Exactly.
Aisha, we know that through reports, Israel is spending now throughout the genocide, close to $180 million they've invested in social media, specifically to push their narrative. Can social media content, Imogen spoke about changing hearts, can it actually change policies at government level?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it has forced a lot of government policies to change. I think divestment has changed. For example, Dutch arms companies that were supplying Israel, through social media, a whole group of university activists went and they took the Dutch government to court to say that you can't do this in a country that is reporting on the genocide, and they stopped those arms. And we've seen so many Europeans, France, the latest one being Norway now, they're divesting, and that is happening through protest. It's not happening because people are sitting at the top as policymakers, because if you don't make a noise, there's no need to change the policy. So everything, and I think especially on a European front, as opposed to anything else, we've never seen so many Europeans come out at those levels, at university levels. We even think about the policies in America and what happened with Mahmoud Khalil and things like that. Those judges were forced to look at those policies. They were forced to say, but this is illegal, you can't do that. But where did those stories come from? As soon as Mahmoud Khalil was arrested, there was a huge uproar. The university started protesting. So these protests, the grassroots movements, these are the things that actually change policies. And that's what happened in South Africa as well. As much as you have the people sitting at the top, it's the people who are on the ground level who make these decisions.
So that would, if somebody had a doubt in their minds, and somebody's disillusioned by, an ordinary citizen is disillusioned by the fact that they're seeing all of this, the genocide's still continuing, nothing's changing, what is me going to share a post achieve? What is me, if I'm going to forward something else, what's that going to mean? Does it mean anything? Is my role, is it going to play any significant part? Imogen, what would you say to somebody who had those doubts?
I would say yes, it will play a role because, what difference can I make except 8 billion people? But I would also say that it's not enough. I don't think that it's pointless to share a post or to forward something, because there's always knowledge is power, and the more that we share that knowledge with other people, the more power there is. But it's not enough. I don't think it should end there. I think that further than sharing the post, you need to be getting involved in the movement. You need to be at the protest. You need to be boycotting. You need to be doing everything in your individual power to make tangible physical changes.
And this would be regardless of age? Or
Yeah.
are we addressing the youth here specifically, or are we addressing everybody who has a cell phone?
Everybody who has a cell phone, in my opinion. I think that anyone who has, almost everyone in many countries has a phone in their back pocket. I don't think that anyone has the excuse of, I didn't know anymore. I think before October 7th, before the start of this heavily documented genocide, a lot of people could have said, 10 years time, we will came to ask you, how did we let this happen? I do think that a lot of people could have honestly said we didn't know. I don't think that anyone can say that anymore.
So if we just take that a step further, a content creator obviously builds up a huge following, becomes influential, has a voice, and then there's the lure of money. of advertisements, of endorsements. How does one kind of navigate that, being a content creator and being an activist and still maintaining integrity, Nati? How does somebody do that?
Well, once you become in the public eye, and there will be a lot of influences that actually try to, I guess, push you away from your activism. I've actually had a few days ago, actually, there was a Zionist that approached me. I didn't know that this was a Zionist. And they wanted me to do some work for them. So after that, they then come back and say, oh, I see your profile picture, you're holding from the river to the sea. So I do not want to work with someone who is for the genocide of Jewish people. And I was like, no, thank you so much for actually saying that, because first of all, I didn't know that you were a genocide apologist. I had no idea. I wasn't even going to respond if I knew that. So I do not want to associate myself with people that are advocating for the killing of Palestinian children and women, and who are actively advocating for a genocide. So please take your business somewhere else. So I think, you really need to stand firm, and you need to have your priorities clear. You must know what you're fighting for. And this wasn't just the first temptation or whatever, not temptation, but it wasn't the first approach that I've had that involved money inside. So I stand for Palestinians, and I know a lot of these Zionists, they know exactly who I am based on the reportings especially from last year, and they try to bait you, they try to trick you with your money, and it's very important to know how important this cause is, and continue the resistance, and just know your priorities as an activist, journalist, and an artist.
Aisha, any advice to content creators who have all of a sudden, within a short space of time, gone from 0 to 100,000 followers, and now there's endorsements coming in? You're tempted, we're human. Any advice to them?
Absolutely. When it comes to a genocide, if you're going to do anything on the fence for Palestine, then just don't do it. There's absolutely, if you're doing anything that could harm the cause at all, that could harm Palestinian people, and this is what I say when you're creating content, even if you're a small content creator, like I'm a small content creator, I have to renew my intention every single day. Why am I doing this? It's to share a message for Palestinians. They have no voice at times, so we have to share our voice. And if you're going to do anything to harm it, you'd rather just do nothing at all. And this is the one time when a genocide is happening that you need to stand very firm. If there's any doubt in your mind, don't do it. If there's an endorsement where you 10% and you're not sure, don't do it. So I don't think there's going to be a time in any of our lives where we need to be more strict, or we need to be more cognizant of what we're doing, because we are basically the last hope left. There's so few journalists left in Gaza right now. There's so few content creators. They are sacrificing their lives. The least we can do is not sacrifice our integrity.
Just to also add on Aisha's point there, I think it's also very important to actually research the people that want to work with you and who are they associated with as well. So for you as a creator or creative, it's very important for you to do that research and to know who you're working with.
Imogen, have you been tempted at any point? You put out some really good content. Have you had approaches from companies or businesses, and when you've done a bit more research, you've realized who they are? Or do you know of anybody who's been in a similar predicament?
I think I can speak on behalf of Scene TV. We've lost, so we have multiple different divisions, and one of them is this, we call it Scene Studio. This is our partnerships, largely with NGOs and creating content for NGOs that not only NGOs, though, that can be businesses, and that is one of the biggest sources of revenue for the company. On October 8th, the very first post that we put out about Palestine, we had one client immediately drop us say they're no longer interested. Another one emailed us saying that they wanted to have a discussion because they've seen our content and they don't want to work with people who support terrorism. I think that it's not just about who approaches us; it's about who we approach. We don't want. I don't care how much money you're going to offer the company, and if it was a personal thing, I don't care how much money you're going to offer me. I think it's something that you just have to, like Aisha said, you have to be so steadfast in. But it's definitely something that you pay for. We've lost a lot of deals through that. But on the other hand, on the flip side, we've gained so many more meaningful, more value-aligned partnerships with organizations like UNRWA, for example. And I think I think that it's definitely not something that anyone is immune to, but it's not something that, it's something that you pay for dearly, but it can also end up being of aid to you.
Okay, so we saw, and a lot of people went through this, from the 6th of October to the 8th of October, a lot of people's masks fell off. A lot of people who we thought were friends showed their true colors, and people lost a lot of relationships. It was, in my opinion, a defining point in human history, whatever's happened since then, because we've seen the real faces of certain people who we thought these were good friends, but then they've just shown, as Natia said, they're pro-genocide, and to make excuses on top of that for the genocide and to dehumanize a people in order to strengthen your belief that this is who you're dealing with. I just want to walk you a step back. We spoke about the media corporations and we spoke about algorithms. Just briefly explain what an algorithm is for somebody who wouldn't understand, who's just used to their phones. How does algorithms determine what type of content you see, and does it differ from platform to platform? How does that kind of work?
Okay, I don't have like a technical answer for that, but an algorithm is basically the thing that drives how many people and which people are seeing what content. It does definitely differ from platform to platform. I think that different platforms have different levels of censorship. For example, on TikTok, people will use code words, not just for Palestine, but for all sorts of things, because their content will immediately be removed, or their accounts could be banned if there's certain sort of trigger words. With Instagram, in my experience, it's not necessarily about your content being removed, it's about what we call shadow banning. So it's not an official ban of your content, you don't get any warnings, it's just the algorithm, Instagram is not pushing your content to as many people. It can be something as simple as posting on your Instagram story. For example, I would on average, if I post a picture of my dog on my Instagram story, which I do a lot, I would get maybe 200, 300 people viewing it. If I post something about Palestine, 60 people, and it doesn't make sense. There was a time where I would see, I would post something about, I would post a photo of something about Palestine and then a photo of my dog, for example. And you could see that the views of the post about Palestine would be like 60 views and my dog would have 300. And that actually, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's impossible, because on an Instagram story, to view it, you've got to tap through multiple different posts to get to one. So it's an example of like, it's literally being suppressed and not being shown to other people.
So we know Instagram and Facebook, if we can just touch on some of the specific platforms that are quite common with the older generation. Most people are on Facebook. The younger generation wonder why we're still on Facebook. We've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got Facebook. Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So currently there's no kind of restrictions on WhatsApp because you're not publishing content out to a general public. Have you found any differences, Aisha, between Facebook and Instagram, even though they're on the same platform? Have you found differences in content, in the way content is shown to your friends or your followers?
I think we're living in a very fast-paced environment. You know, you want your information fast, you want your news fast. Everything you do, you want it to come to you as quickly as possible. So I think people are, especially younger people, are more susceptible to using Instagram now. With Facebook, if there's sort of a longer video or something, so you want to go in depth into it. For example, aid relief through Gift of the Givers or another organization, you could watch a video that will tell you exactly how the aid was distributed, what happened, the people involved. But when you want fast facts, you're going to go to Instagram. And the way that content is shared and like based on the algorithm and things like that, Meta's trying its level best to suppress it. But the pushback from people it's actually been really good, and people have found so many tricks to get around that. So I think especially for young people, even with the algorithm, with the shadow ban, with all of that, if you just do a few things on your posts to make it a bit easier, you're still getting to most people through Instagram. People are sharing content on Instagram very fast. So on Facebook, you'll maybe share one story. On Instagram, people will put about 10 posts over the hour, and it will just go viral.
So if you recall the first hostage handover that was done between the resistance and Israel, those videos of the smiling captives they were all over. We reshared some of them. That content was taken down immediately on Instagram. Nati, what's your preferred platform that you work on? Where have you found most joy out of, let's say, TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram? Which one of those do you prefer, and which one has given you most joy, if I can put it that way?
So X is definitely out of the question. I hardly use X because, Elon Musk. I've really found joy. I mean, Facebook is, first of all, for me, I think it's dead at the moment. It's just dying out. I've seen some success on Instagram, as Aisha has said, to tweak your hashtag, tweak the way you write for the algorithm to allow you to post. So that for me has been Instagram. But also the joys that I've experienced through Instagram is the hate messages that I've been getting. So they always give me so much joy to see.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. I mean, the Jewish Board of Deputies put out their statement last year on Facebook. Even though I said Facebook is dying, but it still really reached a lot of Zionists. And the exclusive book saga then happened afterwards. But yeah, I've really focused on Instagram. I'm trying to get into TikTok. As you said, Khalid, we're quite old now. The young ones are wondering why are we on TikTok. But I'm really trying to break into TikTok because the content that I've seen there, pro-Palestinian content, is really reaching a lot of people. So I'm really trying to break into TikTok.
Imogen, you guys work on a number of platforms. Which ones have you found? Are there any particular platforms that work better, or is it a case of trying to outsmart the algorithms with every single post?
I would say by a little bit, Instagram has been better in my experience, but so marginally that it really doesn't make much of a difference. There are definitely ways to outsmart the algorithm. Aside from the tricks, like using different words and code words and everything, there's something I've seen a lot of people in Palestine, a lot of Gaza creators do actually, we call it algorithm hacking, where they'll play 5 seconds of a random viral video, like a prank or something, before you're hooked and you're watching it before they go into their video about whatever it is relating to Gaza or Palestine. And
so that would be a practical tip for anybody who's watching here.
I would say so.
to work through Instagram.
For sure, and another in terms of practical tips is not just using those existing viral videos, but it's using the formats and the trends of viral videos for your content. So, for example, there's I don't know if you guys all. Sorry, my Siri. I don't know if you guys all remember the very demure, very mindful audio that went viral. I did a story with a creator in Gaza where she listed things that were a part of her life, like look at how I wear my kufiyah, very demure, very mindful, and then she would say, oh, look at how like there's no food in my cupboard because of Israel, not very demure, not very mindful. It went viral. There's also things like put a finger down, that's a very popular format. I think it's not just about using those existing viral videos, but making your content fit what the algorithm wants to push out.
Aisha, any experiences on your side in terms of where you've had successful kind of where you've beat the algorithm successfully, and which platforms are you primarily on?
So our primary platforms at the moment are Instagram and TikTok. And I've noticed, sometimes you have to do things which it's a little bit sickening, but you hashtag Israel instead of Palestine. And then you get a whole new audience who actually sees those videos. And you want the new audience to see it. You want people who support Israel to see the videos. So you have a video on Palestine, but your hashtags are all about Israel. And suddenly you have a whole new audience that they didn't want to look at your video, or they wouldn't have come onto your channel, but now they're watching. There's a few other things, like you can post, in between posting videos of Palestine, you just post something like a tree in the garden, or something, just something to beat the algorithm or to reset for you. And then you can also wait sometimes. If you shadow ban, you wait for a few hours, then you post something completely unrelated. And then you post something for Palestine, it will come back. Another thing is covers. So if you make a video and you must be mindful of the words on the cover, or you can put something a bit bright. When it comes to Palestine and what's happening in the genocide, like you're doing a story of Anas Sharif, your first inclination is not to put something colorful or to put something, you want to put it in black and white. You feel like you want to honor him. But when someone's going through the grid and they see something that catches their eye, they're more likely to tap in on that. So it might not necessarily feel like you putting the right hashtag there. I mean, you want to put a hashtag that says Free Palestine, but as soon as you do that, nobody's going to watch the video. So you can even put something unrelated in your caption. Put something completely unrelated that's not primarily what the story is about, and you'll get a new audience clicking on there.
So I suppose it's a matter of, generally when people are on social media, you're seeing images and you're seeing videos that are emotional, and the first response is an emotional response. So the general advice coming out from everyone here is separate your emotion to be able to beat the algorithm. Just walk your emotion back a couple of steps. Figure out the fact that you're working against something that's programmed, and you can outsmart it and you can work around it. Natia, is that something that you've been successful in? At Social Intifada, what we've done on some of the posts, and I recall getting in touch with one of the prominent accounts that do work on Palestine, Palestini, you probably follow them on Instagram. They told us to remove all hashtags because your hashtags actually stop. That's what the algorithms pick up on. So since we found that, we've increased virality in some of the posts. Is it the same have you had the same experience or a different experience, Nati?
So I guess my experience is our reach is still quite, it's quite limited. I've learned quite a lot from this panel discussion and about the tricks and how to make our post better. But it's been quite there's been quite a buffer from the content that we posted, and we found that whenever we collaborate with another account or two other accounts, they reach like a bigger audience. So it's still really quite tricky to navigate social media in the age of censorship when it comes to Palestinian content.
So each of the platforms would speak to a different age demographic. As we said, and we may be generalizing here, but with Facebook, you're looking at the older demographic. Instagram and TikTok's more the younger demographic. X, we found that, so for example, when Qassam Brigades release content, you'll find their full video on X, but it won't be allowed on Instagram, it won't be allowed on Facebook. So I suppose it's a matter of understanding how the various platforms work. We forgot to talk about YouTube as well, which is an important platform. How have you guys found YouTube at Scene TV?
YouTube is one of the most difficult algorithms and platforms that I've ever tried to crack. But I think that YouTube it's also about the type of content, the length of content that you're putting out. YouTube is where people go to watch longer content. most people don't want to watch longer content in general these days. Most people are, you've got YouTube Shorts, but I always joke, my fiance only watches YouTube Shorts, so if I see something that's trending on TikTok, he doesn't know what I'm thinking about, I say, I'll come to YouTube Shorts in 2 weeks. So, it's not really something that's often used, but I think we found success using it for some of our short films. We found success using it for our medium form content, like 10 minutes, deeper dive explainers. People go to YouTube because they want to learn more, they want something to watch that's longer. If they wanted shorts, 1 minute, even 3 minutes, they would go to TikTok or Instagram. But it is definitely one of the more difficult algorithms, in my experience, to crack.
I just want to shift away from that. We've touched on quite a few of the platforms, and I suppose the advice would be to anybody to try out the different platforms and see how far you can navigate. Because there's also been a call, why don't we have alternative social media platforms, which is a valid argument, but then on the other hand, all the users are on the existing platforms. So it's a matter of outsmarting those algorithms. How do we then build trust in the alternative news community, if I can call it that? How does one become an authority without becoming mainstream? Because you want to potentially keep a difference between the two, and not be seen as a mainstream media outlet, but still have a voice of authority. Aisha, what are your thoughts on that?
I think we owe it to the people who are going through a genocide, and people who are suffering greatly, to verify every single thing more than once before you use it in your content. So that's the first thing. Verify it with news sources, verify it with reputable news sources, and with people on the ground. And once you've done that, be very cognizant. If you're not sure, then try again, wait a little bit. This is very different from doing any other content. It's not about the clickbait, it's not about who gets the credit, it's about your integrity over and above everything else. So if it takes a little bit more time, but you need to verify it, especially when it comes to things like people that have been martyred, the facts surrounding sensitive issues, you need to have so much of respect for the content that you put out there. And you'll see that people will respect you, even if you take a little bit longer to... we got a thing where we say we don't need to break the story, but we need to make sure that we have the correct story. So if it takes you a bit longer, it's fine, but make sure that you're honoring the people who are on the ground reporting the story itself, by getting your information from the best news sources, from the people on the ground. And if you're unsure about anything, don't report it, and the trust will definitely come. And you can reference, it's good to reference where you're getting that information from as well. Be open to conversation. There's so many people, especially Zionists and a lot of South Africans who are on the fence, will message me and be like, but how do you know that? And I'll give them the source directly where it came from. And the thing about Palestinians and even Palestinian journalists, and it's mind-blowing to me, about 3 weeks ago, I had messages from Anas Sharif, and after his martyrdom, I couldn't believe, there were other people as well, and you think, I'm Aisha sitting here in South Africa, Anas Sharif has time to respond to me. But they do. It means so much to them, the way that we're sharing the true story, that they will respond to you. So it's at your disposal if you're working in media. Make sure that you use it with integrity and respect.
That's quite moving, because Anas's last message that went out, I think he sent a WhatsApp message to somebody in Turkey, about the only time he'll leave Gaza is when he's going to heaven as a martyr. That was one of the last WhatsApp messages sent out from Anas. Instead of, so the danger to just using social media irresponsibly is to just forward everything that comes your way. How do we prevent that?
Well, first of all, we know that viral content, it's designed to capture our attention. I think the most responsible thing that I have done is just, first of all, just be involved with a community that shares factual information, attend protests, attend hearings, record what you're hearing from the horse's mouth, really, and it really does take practice, because we all want to go viral. We all want to share viral information, but just as Aisha has said, just hold back sometimes. and just verify your facts. Be involved with the community. That is all about truth. Speak to journalists that are on the ground. If you have access to those sources, and just wait. Rather report the truth, rather post the truth, rather share the truth.
Imogen, I suppose firstly for young people who are on social media and who are aspiring content creators, what advice would you give to them to be able to use social media responsibly as content creators, maintaining a difference between performative content and stuff that's meaningful?
I think my first thought on that is often, all the time, we hear kids are on social media too much. There's too much. Kids are using social media too much. I would disagree. I would say that kids aren't using it enough for the right reasons, and I think that it's very difficult to advise a younger generation on how to use it responsibly, how to differentiate performative from meaningful content. As an outsider, I do think that lies largely as the responsibility of the parents and the community, and I think that our role comes in by making sure that we are being responsible with the media that we are creating. The less unverified or problematic content that is being shared from the trusted sources, the bigger corporations, the people with more followers, the less that there is for people to be sharing. Because at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility or your responsibility for someone to verify content before they share it. It's the responsibility of the people who are posting it.
Aisha, what would you say to anybody wanting to, let me switch the question around. How do we encourage or inspire people, young and old, any age, to move from just consuming content to take the step forward to become content creators, but in a responsible, positive manner?
I think actually most of the inspiration comes offline. So it starts with educating people, and it starts from as early as Nati's coloring book. And when you start doing that and when you tell people the stories, so inspire people by telling them the stories of what's happening in Palestine, what the people go through when they share their content. They're actually risking their lives for us to hear their stories. And after people hear that, after they are cognizant of the fact that it's not just a social media post anymore, as Imogen said, it's not that people are using too much of social media. We have this huge thing at our disposal now. This is the first time a genocide has been documented in this way, where you can access every single thing happening every day. So once you get that understanding in people and you explain to them that they play such an important role in carrying on this message, because Palestinians tell you all the time, as I mentioned earlier, if Anas Sharif has the time to message me, how much does it mean to Palestinians when you share the content? And once you realize that you're doing it for them, you're sharing it because that's what they need from you. Because every time they post on social media, they say, share our stories, reshare, post, please tell our stories, we can't tell them. So once you realize that you're doing it for them and you're doing it in order to do what they sometimes can't do or to share it with the rest of the world, there's a whole change in attitude for social media, in inspiration and everything else.
Nati, any words of advice for budding content creators, young or old, without giving away ages?
So my advice is that just watch what is happening, follow trusted news media, and most importantly, just if you're hesitant to press that record button and start your content, just a genocide is happening at the moment. We are, as Aisha has said, we are witnessing a live recorded genocide for the very first time. So just get up and create the content. If you're passionate about it, press record, share your experiences, and we need more Palestinian voices. We have quite a few, but it's not enough. We need more voices. This is a genocide, so create your content. Don't overthink, just do it.
Imagine someone watching this might be sitting on the fence. They want to take that step but they're not sure. They don't want to be. They don't want to feel embarrassed. They're not sure which apps to use. They're not sure how the content's going to be received. What advice would you give them to encourage that final step?
Firstly, I would say I can relate. For the longest time, I've been behind the camera. I've been producing everything, but for a while, recently, the past year or so, I've started doing a lot of explainer content. And it was terrifying at first, but the reason behind it that really motivated me is because at that time, most people of color, their voices, especially Arab, brown, Muslim people, were seen as automatically as biased and unreliable. And I, as a white person, I realized that I innately have privilege. There's nothing I can do to stop that. But what a waste it would be if I didn't use that privilege for good. And I did see that my voice was often more respected. As horrible as it is, it's the truth. And I think it comes down to, it is scary, it can be embarrassing. At first you might feel awkward, but you find your reason, find your why you want to be creating that content, and that'll make it a lot easier.
Aisha, any words of advice for somebody who's waiting to take that final step? Just want to touch on, before that, Imogen, you could have been seen as somebody who's swimming upstream in the community. And to be able to use a privilege for a cause, not many people see that. Not many people understand that. Not many people would be brave enough to do that. We earlier had Margaret from South African Jews for a Free Palestine doing a puppet show for kids. They're fighting a massive battle internally within the Jewish community. So again, just some words of advice for people who might be facing similar conundrums. You have a privilege, you're speaking to a certain audience, you know what the truth is, but you're holding back.
This is not going to sound like the kindest advice, but if you think it's difficult for you, if you think you're facing challenges, the consequences that other people will suffer if you don't speak up, if you don't swim upstream, you don't challenge the narrative, the consequences of not doing it are far, far worse.
Aisha, the same can be said of the Muslim Indian community. It's a massively privileged community for large parts. And is the community making use of that privilege or just riding the wave? And what advice would you have to them?
I'm not going to hold back. So in terms of the Muslim community, we do have people who post and, they say, pray for Palestine. And I think what I'd like to elaborate a little bit on is, yes, we must pray. We must pray because we're Muslims innately. That's important to us. But if you want to help the Palestinian cause, you need to do what the Palestinians are telling you to do. So you can respectfully go and pray in the mosque, and then you can't come out and sit with your can of Coke just outside there, It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to still be eating McDonald's or drinking Coke or sitting at a Starbucks. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we must remember as a Muslim community that if we want to go back into our religion, we actually have more of a duty. We should physically be present helping the people in Gaza. And if we're not doing that, then at least don't let a beverage dictate your worth. I mean, you are stronger than that. You are stronger than a few commercialized items, and there shouldn't be a discord. So you can't say, but I'm doing it my way. I'll do this for Palestine, but I can't boycott. Or, I'll pray, but sorry, I can't join a protest. You do what the Palestinians need you to do. They are telling you from a genocide, this is what we need. We need you to protest. We need you to share content. We need you to boycott and divest the way they boycotted and divested for us in South Africa so that we could overcome apartheid. So we don't have the privilege of deciding how we want to join the Palestinian cause. You want to join the Palestinian cause, you join it the way the Palestinians are telling you to join it.
And I'll put a full stop under that. Nati, I'm going to come to you because we have, and you see these comments online, maybe on news posts, on the news platforms or on X, people from the African community saying, well, the Arabs are far away. We've got our own problems in South Africa. What should we be doing? We've got enough problems of our own. instead of having to worry about somebody else. How would you speak to that within the community? Imogen's spoken to a specific community, Aisha has as well. From your perspective, how would you address that within the African community?
Well, first of all of our struggles are connected. As I've said in the beginning, that we come from apartheid, the oppressive system. We've seen how it's treated our Nelson Mandela. We've seen how it's treated our Steve Biko and all of our prominent leaders. And in my community, I've even had people who are unaware of the Middle East conflict. And they felt that the coloring book and the material that I've done, because I also do cartoons for Daily Maverick on Palestine and other issues, is that they feel like they're actually learning a thing or two. And I feel like for me as a black man, I've done my job because, you know, as an artist, it's my responsibility to use my platform and my art as a form of education and communication. And yes, my people are going through their own struggles. I mean, the poverty, the unemployment that we have in South Africa that affect mostly black people is just too severe. And many of my people would say, I have issues of my own. I have no time to think about Palestine. I have no time to boycott Coca-Cola. I have no time to stop eating McDonald's. But our struggles are shared. They're universal. So that's the first thing we must know. And second of all, yes, we are used to these brands, you know, that are associated with Israel, and we are so comfortable in, you know, consuming those brands. But we need to learn. We need to do our research as the black community, and I'm really proud to say that from the feedback that I've heard from my black community on the books on Palestine, they are starting to really understand what the cause is for and is about, and they're starting to understand the resistance, and they're starting to understand that the Israeli system, it's an apartheid system, just like us. We also come from there. So being black and being brown, it's automatically our responsibility to stand up and to be in solidarity with all that are going through oppression.
Thanks for that. And in rounding off, I would urge the audience and the viewers to follow each of the accounts of our panel here. Imogen, if you want to just give out your account details in terms of where people can find your work.
On Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, we're at scene.tv and at scene.palestine, scene SEEN. We're pretty much every media platform.
Nati, where can people connect with you?
So people can connect with me on Facebook as Nati Ngubane, and Instagram as at @IM_Nkosnati, TikTok as well, at _IM Nkosnati. That's how they can connect with me.
Aisha, where can they follow and find your work?
Primarily on Instagram. You can find my Palestinian content on there for the Debrief Network, Coalition for Good, a few other, you know, media channels that support Palestine, and I'm under Aisha Vawda on Instagram as well.
Aisha, Nati, Imogen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming out today. We really appreciate you on behalf of Social Intifada and everybody at the team. Thank you for coming out and providing your valuable insight to our audience. Round of applause for everyone, please. Thank you.